All right, buddy, you ready to get this thing started again?
Heck yeah, man. We got breaking news. The jersey numbers have been selected.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. We'll break that huge news right after the theme music.
Great.
Welcome to We Got Nets, a podcast about Brooklyn's finest. Here are your hosts, Adam Armbrecht and Doug Norrie.
All right, welcome back to the We Got Nets podcast, episode 5. I'm Doug Norrie. That is Adam Armbrecht, here talking all things Brooklyn Nets. Oh, hey, buddy. You didn't even let me get through my little spiel here. I know you're chomping at the bit with this numbers thing. We're going to get to it. We're going to talk about what jersey you're going to be able to wear during the season.
It's only episode 5. I got a little worked up. I'm sorry.
It's okay. There's enough to talk about, but we got a whole season in this. And there's no reason to jump off the cliff right away. We want to take a slow walk to it. We are We Got Nets podcast, talking all things Brooklyn Nets basketball. This is our 5th episode. We'll be here all season long, all through the summer, and then all season long, breaking down games. We'll spend the summer talking about what direction the team is headed, and then during the season, obviously, game reviews, game previews, all that good stuff. So make sure you stick around all the way through the 2019-2020 season. It's an exciting time, man. We talked last episode all about the free agent signings, the much ballyhooed Kyrie, Irving, and Kevin Durant stuff. And I think, we can probably touch on that a little bit, although I think we did a pretty good job of kind of just laying the groundwork for what the season was going to like. But, man, I think I texted you sometime Friday night. I kind of getting a little confused about the timing. And I think I just said, just when you wake up, go look at what happened with Kawhi Leonard. I won't even bury the lead on you here. Just go scroll through the timeline. What was your immediate reaction? We'll break down what I mean and why I think it's important for the Nets here. But what was your immediate reaction when you woke up on Saturday to find out that Kawhi was going to the Clippers?
Yeah, I guess my immediate reaction is Kawhi's out of the East. One less team in front of the Nets to worry about. That's the lead for me. And then I think the secondary thing would be, we heard that little bit of chatter just before KD officially decided to come to Brooklyn, where there were conversations between him and Kawhi. So I think you could tell that Kawhi was maybe sniffing around for who's going to come with me somewhere to help build whatever team I go to as far as another championship goes.
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail on the head for our purposes here. It's that he's no longer in the East, and that's a huge deal for the Nets to not have Kawhi, to basically take Toronto. And Toronto's still a good team, so I don't want to losing Kawhi does not make them a bottom-feeding team by any stretch of the imagination. They still have a couple good pieces there, specifically Siakam, but they're going to be headed in a weird direction now, I think, and they're going to have to do some looking in the mirror strategies, I think, to try to figure out where they're going to go. But just getting him specifically out of the East is such a huge deal, and we saw the Vegas lines and betting markets move pretty dramatically away from Toronto, as they should have on the back of that trade. If you look at, you can't find these odds everywhere, but betonline.ag has like the division odds and then the Eastern Conference odds. By the way, how annoying is it that, these stupid divisions, I don't even know why they do this. The Atlantic Division, the fact that the Nets, Celtics, Sixers, and Raptors are all in the same, and then the Knicks are all in the same division. Like, can we just? Do you agree that we should just move away from this at this point? Like that, having the Atlantic Division and having playoff berths and seeding sort of work their way out of these these specific divisions. Do you agree they're just totally worthless?
Yeah, they have no. It doesn't change anything throughout the course of the season. It doesn't change anything when it comes to the playoff. It's like this arbitrary structure that then when you get to the playoffs, they go, so go ahead and forget about that. Now we'll seed and now we'll move forward. So yeah, I would love to see them get rid of that. And there has.
Well, then you have the Southeast Division. That's the Hawks, the Hornets, the Heat, the Magic, and the Wizards. And it's like 4 of the 5 worst teams in the East or something like that. They're just all piled together in that terrible division. Anyway, so the betting odds on Kawhi, off the Kawhi move, to win the Atlantic Division, which is essentially a proxy for winning the Eastern Conference. If you you don't have the Bucks there as the one kind of fly in the ointment, because the Bucks are the favorites there. But the odds to win that division is plus 300 for the Celtics, plus 150 for the Sixers, also plus 300 for the Raptors, and then plus 400 for the Nets. So they're a little bit behind. But if you look at their championship odds, they actually come into the same odds as the Celtics and the Raptors at plus 800. So that skewed that line significantly down, as well it should have. And it just makes the East even more wide open. Now that Kawhi, we talked a little bit last week about what we thought the Nets, what realistic expectations for Brooklyn were going into the season. And we talked under the assumption that Kawhi was staying with Toronto at the time. And now that's over now. I mean, does that rework some of your expectations about what we can maybe expect from this team, at least in like playoff seeding? I mean, are we just talking like top 4 seed or bust now? Like home court advantage kind of has to be in the conversation now that Kawhi's out of here, or is that just not enough to move the needle?
Yeah, well, and I think last time we talked, I was saying when we were talking about expectations, that's kind of where my head was at. Now, you put it in that context of that's probably best case scenario for the Nets when I was saying at least a 4 seed, want to see them up near that 47, 48 win mark, and you want to see them getting a home court playoff series and getting a win there. So, yes, it only makes me feel stronger about it. Now, you might think that now we know Kawhi is gone, I'm going to get even more headstrong about what they should be accomplishing, but I think it's still the same expectations. 4 seed maybe becomes a little bit more feasible. You can be a little bit stronger thinking that they can accomplish that with less of a battle potentially. But the other teams that you were talking about, the Pacers, the Celtics, those are the teams that we were going to be competing with around that seeding area. So I think you still look to see them in that same position, and this really indicates to me come playoff time that it opens things up more for the Nets. So it's less about where they seed and how they go into the playoffs, but now maybe there's the potential that they can get a little bit deeper in the playoffs with Toronto being a bit weaker.
And I want to make a point here too, and ESPN used to have this in their game log, and these psychos took it away, and I don't know why. It makes it impossible to look. They used to show the games the players didn't play, they show the whole team in their game log, and then you would get a 0 for games you didn't play, but these psychopaths took it out, so now it's impossible. But I'm fairly certain that, sorry to be annoyed by it, but this is something I was so used to looking at for so long, and then overnight, at some point, like in March, it changed, and it just ruined my life kind of, because that was what I was kind of counting on to be able to see on court, off court, sort of stuff. But regardless, right. Kawhi, it's important to note that last year with Kawhi, with Toronto, he sat usually the second half, but at least one side of every back-to-back during the season. They really rested him. And in the games that he didn't play, Toronto was really good still. Like, they won a lot of those games. And that's why I was trying to just glance and look at what that record was. I don't have it. I could do a query on it later. But essentially, the part where they lose him, this was still an excellent team, even when he wasn't on the court. So it's not, they're going to fall out of the championship odds realm, but in terms of the playoff seeding, this is a team that's not likely to start blowing it up this year. They still have a pretty competitive team. They kind of got screwed because they waited on Kawhi and they didn't get any other free agents because of it. So now they have a gaping hole. So anyway, it's a little bit more NBA writ large stuff here. Oh, go ahead.
No, just a quick footnote I wanted to ask you. And I think you answered it almost anyway, but I know they brought back Gasol, and there was a little bit of chatter that was tethered to Kawhi. You don't see any scenario where the Toronto Raptors will look to move Gasol now. I mean, they still view themselves as competing this year, and they don't think that Gasol is a throwaway piece or a trade asset in any kind of shape or form.
He's an expiring contract, so he's probably going to have some trade value to somebody if they fall out of it. It's going to kind of depend where they see themselves down the stretch into the trade deadline and how the season is going, I suspect. Mm-hmm. They're going to be a good regular season team, mostly because they are just really well coached and they do have some pieces. They lost Andy Green and Kawhi, and they aren't going to be able to realistically replace them with anybody, or anybody even close to that level, because again, the free agency just sort of moved on without them.
They signed Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, my friend, 1-year contract, so watch your backs. I'm just letting you know. I don't know if that's total apples to apples, Kawhi to Rondae Hollis, but I'm pretty sure if I look up the stats, it's very, very far apart.
That's an excellent net seg, because we've spent a lot of time on the Raptors now. But again, I do think it's important. Yeah. I do think it's important to. It is important just in terms of the Nets to understand where these other teams are, because again, it's good to have realistic expectations around where these teams are going to be. Another interesting piece of betting that it is really Nets related. I was sifting around some of these lines last night, and one that kind of jumped out to me was Kyrie Irving's scoring odds at -150, which means you're paying like a heavy vig. You're not getting this at even odds. Essentially, if you don't do a lot of gambling, -150 for a binary outcome like this means that the expectation it's going to be higher. But it was minus 150 for 23.5 points per game, which would put him up, among some of the league leading scorers. Some guys, are pouring in more than that. Do you like that number? I know, the minus 150 means you're probably trending more up to like 24.25 actual points. Do you see that coming for him this year? Do you feel like we can translate some of D'Lo's per minute scoring and put it on Kyrie and have him like be this kind of 24 to 25 point a game scorer? Because if you do, then that's seeming like a pretty good bet.
Yeah. So I mean, and I pulled up his career stat numbers. You go back the last even 4 seasons is a little bit much because 2015 he's has some injuries and stuff. But the last 3 years, 23.8, 24.4, 25.2. So I guess the line makes sense if you look at the last 3 years, and I think it makes sense because coming into the Nets, the expectation is that late in games that he's the guy with the ball in his hands. He's your strongest scorer on the floor. My only curiosity is that him plugging into the Nets system, they work underneath the minutes regiment. They don't overtax anybody during the year. I don't think that they're going to look to overtax Kyrie, especially in his first year without KD on the court. So, I expect him to be up around that figure, but I don't know how the gameplay from Kenny Atkinson is going to dictate if he gets that opportunity. Is he playing 34, 35 minutes a game, or is he playing closer to that 30 mark, not unlike D'Angelo Russell, not comparing them as players, but just, if he's around 30, then him scoring 22 points a game, 23 points a game seems fine as well. So, I don't know if you'd probably say stronger if that's a real indication at that minus 150, or is that just a bold conjecture that he's going to really be stepping up his offensive game on the Nets?
Yeah, I wonder how much that conversation happened actually during this process, because it has to be widely known about how the Nets really ran the rotations, and they just weren't the kind of team that ran out their guys for 36, 37 minutes a game. Obviously it was much less. They kind of trended around the 28 to 29 minute, and every once in a while you get guys who would crest over that if they were playing well or they saw something they liked. But I wonder how much that was part of the conversation. To some degree, Boston did similar things. They never really taxed their guys either. They ran very low minutes compared to the rest of the league for their starters, for guys like Tatum, even Kyrie. Obviously, Hayward they really managed during the season. So it's not too dissimilar, I guess, from where he was coming from. Kyrie does get a slight pace up. Situation here, Brooklyn did play at a slightly faster pace. They played 103.4 possessions per 100 last year, and Boston played 102. So not an overwhelming difference, but there's a slight increase in the amount of pace. And I just do think there had to be some conversation here about that the offense was running through him. Whereas like D'Lo they still, for as much as they loved him, they treated him sort of with kid gloves at times. Like there was times early in the season where he didn't even close games, right? Like that's not going to be the case here with Kyrie. So I don't think it's a complete apples to apples comparison. And I actually bet that number. I think he's going to average like something like 25 points a game or something like that. I think he's going to take a lot of shots in this offense. The rest of the team's young. He's not going to need to defer. I think this was probably the conversation that they had going into it. So even at minus 150, which I know is probably a sucker's bet because I'm looking at the 23.5. I did like the number. Did you see? I sent you a picture last night of him signing. I saw an awesome tweet over the weekend about. Because Kevin Durant tweeted something like just crazy. It was like him riding a bicycle or something like that and talking about life. And on his it didn't tweet, it was on Instagram. And this guy Shea Serrano on Twitter said something like, Kyrie and KD on the same team is going to be like True Detective season 1 if Matthew McConaughey was both the cops. So I think that pretty much summed it up for me. No, but yeah, so Kyrie does sign. I mean, do you have any, we were kind of joking about it at the beginning of the show here. Do you care at all about the number thing and the jersey thing? I saw some Nets fans in different forums sort of jumping ugly about the choices around the numbers. I know we kind of kidded around about it. Do you actually have any opinion about it? I personally don't, but I don't know. You're more of a Nets, fan than I am. Does the number thing matter to you at all?
I have a little something more on Kyrie's play, but as far as I know, and maybe this takes me out of a certain tier of fandom, but I couldn't care any less about the number that KD's going to wear on his jersey. And I guess maybe fans want to get out there and buy the jersey. So now that that's official, you can start getting online. I think I even saw some Brooklyn Nets, number 35 Durant jerseys that were on sale this past week. So there's probably a group of fans that are really disappointed that they purchased that already. But no, that doesn't move the needle for me in any way, shape, or form. I'm more excited that the player is here, less concerned about what's on his jersey. That's just
What was the other Kyrie piece he had?
Oh, so just an interesting point about him too was, and I thought about this last podcast, compared to D'Angelo Russell as well. One of the things they talked about when he comes into this system, Kyrie obviously is a player that can beat guys one-on-one off the dribble.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look back last year, D'Angelo Russell needed a lot of pick and roll play. That was, a big function of that, which meant Jared Allen coming out to the top of the key to set a pick is not necessarily the strongest thing you want Allen to be doing consistently. And it also meant that it's potentially disrupting how you want to run the offense because you don't have a guy at the point guard position who could just take a man one-on-one, beat him, get in the lane, and then potentially drive and kick. So I think to your point as well, that's going to be an element of Kyrie's game that changes the dynamic of how this offense works, and you're going to probably see him in the lane a lot more frequently, and then having his choice. Am I driving the basket? Am I kicking out to an open look? So that should also be an indicator.
The guy's got like the best handle in the league. I don't think that's really. I mean, if it's not the best, you're splitting hairs with him and a couple other players. The handle's ridiculous. It's actually the main reason that because he's pretty small, all things considered, for an NBA player. But his ability, the handle specifically, and his ability to finish at the rim, considering even how small he is it's really just kind of almost like it's transcendent ability compared to what his size is. So I think I'm totally with you that he just is a different player in that. One other shout out here that I wanted to give to the Kyrie piece, and then we're going to take a quick break, is so in my previous life, before I started doing sports analyst stuff for the last 5 years, I was a teacher, and actually Kyrie Irving was in the district that I taught in West Orange, New Jersey. And yesterday, he was easily the most. He didn't go to high school there. He ended up going to Montclair Kimberly and then St. Patrick's, but St. Joseph's. So he didn't. Guys like this don't finish in public high schools typically. But so he actually did his contract signing in the Roosevelt Middle School gym in West Orange yesterday. So shout out to Paul Atzma. He was his middle school coach. He was a good buddy of mine when I was teaching. I think he was around for that, but he did do the signing in West Orange, which is the town that he grew up in, even though that he wasn't didn't actually go to high school there. So shout out to all the West Orange folks who I think were probably around for that signing yesterday. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're back again to talk about some of this. Jared Allen, talk about some of the other pieces that the Nets added during the offseason and where this stuff's going to kind of line up.